Welcome out, everybody, to another discussion between the great Jordan from Waters Above Crypto and myself. My name is Logan from Decode Reality. And thanks, everybody, for joining in, both my channel and Jordan's crowd over at the Wolfpack over there. And we just, like we always do, right, Jordan? We randomly just said, hey, let's do a podcast today. And we just literally planned it a couple hours ago. So that's how we seem to roll. Surprise. It's been what, maybe over 3 weeks since we did our last one.
Yeah, no, it might have been a full month. What was the last one we covered? Was it Saturnalia?
Yeah, it was. Wow, it's back in December. Woo!
Woof.
Wowzers. It's been a while. Okay, cool. So I'm excited to drop some truth bombs, our truth bombs, I should say, to the
100%.
decoding world. Yeah, and ladies and gentlemen, we just really don't have a topic. So I don't even know what I'm going to name this, but I'll figure it out because everything's just improv anyway.
Yeah, we got this, man. If our phone calls could be 2 hours long without any,
right?
No,
the last phone call was like 2 hours again.
Exactly. And every single time we finish them up and we're like, dude, we should have made this a podcast.
Just going to start recording the phone call right away.
Yeah.
Every time, because there's so many chock full of nuggets in there.
Seriously.
Yeah. And we just kind of feed off each other. And I was, ladies and gentlemen, if you're on my channel, please hop over to Jordan's channel because he just dropped his, Super Bowl / crypto decode, which was a very fine presentation, by the way. He had a lot of great nuggets in there with that 43.
Appreciate you, man. Thank you.
Yeah, of course, man. And that 43 is, oh, what a gem of a number that is, right? I didn't see the score coming. I got the score wrong. I had predicted the winner, but I didn't get the score right. But
you did? When did you make that prediction?
I'll tell you right now, I put my prediction out.
I was actually about to ask you that.
Last week, I predicted the Rams. I had actually predicted them to win and represent the NFC, but I didn't say they were going to win the Super Bowl. I'd put that post out in my community and said the Rams were going to win the NFC and would represent the NFC. And then someone had posted, it's going to be the Bengals and the Rams. And then I did say, I think it's going to be the Rams, the Bengals as well. And then 13 days ago, 2 weeks ago, I dropped my Rams winner on the Super Bowl. And I got the score. I predicted it was going to be 30-27. So I got the 3-point spread right, but the total score I got wrong.
And what brought you to that decision on the Rams?
Well, I mean, I have my own system using the cards, which I haven't shared with anybody, which I'm really hesitant to do that because the cards really tell the narrative of how this reality works. Typical deck of poker cards, but, I can show you last year's Super Bowl and why. And clearly the cards told Tom Brady it was in his charts for him to win the MVP and the Super Bowl and the Buccaneers. But it was heavily lining up with the cards. I studied the cards a lot. These charts, they move, but it was really the Rams being Mars, representing Mars. And then there's astrology that is lined up with the results. And Mars and Venus were both at 15 degrees in the fourth house. I think it was the third or fourth house. And that was a big play in it as well. Most people thought it was going to be the Bengals because it was the year of the Tiger, but then you have, Sean McVay, you had to bring him in and look at his cards and his charts. He had the 29th card in the deck, and that was a heavily favored card in the charts. And then Matthew Stafford was a big clue because Matthew Stafford has got the 5 spades card, which is the card of the Bavarian Illuminati. And I know a lot of people are just going to automatically, there it is. It's the Illuminati. And it just, as you know how I roll, those people are being used, but it was linked to the Bavarian Illuminati. They have that same birth card. May 1st is the 5 spades card. Matthew Stafford being born on February 7th, he has the 5 spades card. And so there was the position of that card in the charts. That was a pretty big dead giveaway. How about you? What was your, because you had predicted it too, right?
Well, I gotta like fully say that I don't do predictions. Like I
Uh-huh.
didn't look at it from a predictive perspective. My kind of note on it was that I had a thesis because of the metaverse slash Facebook, historic drop in their stock price in a single 24-hour period.
Uh-huh.
I was in the midst of decoding that and sharing my thoughts on that whole breakdown, and essentially it just naturally rolled into the time frame of the Super Bowl. And of course everyone's asking me about it, wanting to know like who do you think's going to win. And I don't know any of the players. Like
Mhm.
honestly, all the things you just said about like their birth cards, like I don't know anything about these guys. So my whole position on it was the basics. Like I was just like, okay, I'm working on this Facebook metaverse decode. Of course, we had a little bit of a conversation about this, perhaps personally, talking about that picture of the tiger
Chewing
kind
on
of biting
the
the neck
ox.
of the
Yeah.
ox. Yeah.
Yeah.
And this symbology was given to us through that metaverse commercial. And so we were talking about that a little bit just to let your audience know. And this kind of brought me down the rabbit hole. And I started making all these connections to Jupiter and Facebook and all of these price targets that we're seeing with predominantly Bitcoin, and the NASDAQ, as well as Facebook metaverse stock, were all coming back to these connections through Tiger and Jupiter. And yeah, so essentially what it brought me to was the tiger connection to Facebook and them showing us the symbology of the tiger being in like a dominative sort of power position.
Yeah.
But then we see what happened to Facebook stock. It took a huge
Took a
tumble.
plummet.
So
Yeah.
this was incredible. And I was doing a little bit of technical analysis on Facebook, and I was able to kind of dive a little bit deeper into the numbers because I haven't even looked at the Facebook charts like ever. I don't give stocks much attention. I try to
Yeah. Neither
focus
do
mostly
I.
on, right. I try to focus mostly on crypto. But lately, due to the market conditions, I've been trying to get people to be a little bit more focused on the fact that cryptocurrency is in its nascent kind of like infantile stages. And one of the things that we could do to kind of calm down and be a little bit more chill in our, day-to-day lives regarding crypto investors is to go back to the dot-com bubble and the early kind of phase
Yeah.
of the adoption of these tech companies, these FANG stocks in particular. So it was completely random and natural that I started making these connections. And then it was a quick one for me. Like once I saw Facebook take that huge dump, I was like, okay, well, that's tied to the tiger. And then you have the Bengals obviously tied to it all. There was so many connections with the city of Cincinnati that I
Yeah.
started decoding.
Yeah.
And then I just basically said, like, I know all these decoders and people out there are betting on the Bengals, but I'm going the opposite direction on this one. And I'm almost, completely I wasn't saying this on videos. I did say on video in my Patreon and in a YouTube video last week that I don't think the Bengals will win. But even in private conversations that I was having with people reaching out to me about the Super Bowl, I was saying I'm almost certain the Rams are going to win.
Yeah. Well, it's God. I'm considering doing a post follow up to show people the machinations of why this outcome was the way it was. And now obviously there's so many branches from the root, to me, making it impossible for man to code this. They're just kind of, I think you can become conscious of the code like we have become, like many people have become, but the machinations of the organic code always works in the background, kind of churning its wheels behind us. But from the distance between Cincinnati and Los Angeles, the stadiums, you have Sophie Stadium, which is the address was 1001. And then you have Paul Brown Stadium in Cincinnati, which is 1 Paul Brown. And so you add 1001 with the 2 there and you get the 1002 and you get the 21 or the 12 or the 201. And there's so many layers to this. But what I thought was really fascinating, since you brought up the dump of Facebook and being the tiger and obviously heavily influenced by Chinese culture. So does China own Facebook? That's a big display in that. But what I thought was really interesting was that meta, the word meta equals the number 14.
Yeah.
And the score
Right.
was 43 total, and 43 is the 14th prime number. And what's fascinating about the 43 is when you bring it to alchemy, you have this element called technetium, which comes from a Greek word teknetos, which means artificial. And you get the meta, which is artificial, that which means created by man. But then the 14, with being the prime of the 43, the alchemical representation of 14 is silicon. And what's the tech capital of the world? Silicon Valley. So there's a heavy draw to artificial intelligence, computers going into the digital quantum world, which, you know, I think you talked about that on that last breakdown, didn't you?
Yeah, I was just, I was breaking down how we're moving quantum, and it's important to be cognizant of that. And if you don't take that seriously, especially during this particular time frame, which I've been talking about on my channel at length, is the Shemitah. And this time frame in particular, like, it's always timed with a big change. And we could go back to the dot-com bubble, for instance. That was a huge change in our reality, kind of becoming more comfortable on the computer communications through the internet, all of that stuff. That was groundbreaking technology for the everyday person to have available to them. So, and even during that time frame, you had people like Bill Gates, for instance, coming out and saying publicly that the internet was a trend. Right? He was coming out and saying that the early days. He said, this is just a trend and it'll probably go away. And what's really, these players in this game, these stewards of our matrix, which I do not even think Bill Gates is even close to being one of those individuals. But with that being said, like, people take that guy seriously at that time and at all times. So if you have any of these big players on the world stage, coming out and making statements like this, you got to pay attention to stuff like that. And for me, like, it's obvious that behind the scenes, we're slowly getting pushed towards blockchain technology and cryptocurrency as the financial system has some sort of transformative. I just believe we're in that process of transforming everything over to the quantum, and the money side of it is absolutely important. The credit side of it is huge. I mean, anyone who talks about debt and credit and what's going on with that side of things, it's massive. It's a lot of funny money, a lot of uncounted for money, and something's got to give. And in my opinion, this is the perfect sort of kind of the problem reaction solution kind of thing. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just a classic one of those.
I mean, what's so fascinating about this whole Facebook Super Bowl connection and moving into the quantum realm, they're calling it the metaverse, and metaverse in numerology, Chaldean, of course, is 35. And that's a direct match to the word simulation. Simulation equals 35, metaverse equals 35, and Facebook was founded on the 35th day of the year, which is my birthday, coincidentally. And 35 is the makeup of pi, 3.14. It's 35. And, when you take the two eyes on our face, the left and right sides, left and right equal the number 35. So obviously, there's a big say in this with moving into the metaverse and this 35. And then, you get Neo from the Matrix, which was Keanu Reeves, played by Keanu Reeves, and he has the 35th card in the deck as his birth card coming down. And it's just, wow, the connections are just so unbelievable and uncanny, but they're just so believable once you start to see them.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, even actually what you just brought up about Neo, and I'm working on something in the background, but perhaps we could sort of riff on it for a moment. And, we were talking about how, and I brought this up in my video today as well, for anyone who wants to go check that out. I was discussing how, Ares is the ram, Mars, the god of war. And the number one player on the world stage who's a celebrity right now is Kanye West. And Kanye West is being he's being caught up in this current war, if you will, with this character named Pete Davidson, I believe is his name. I don't really pay too much attention to this shit, but people send it my way, and I see it for what it is through, the the deeper, meanings. So where this is going is he's in a war also with his ex-wife, again, over what's going on with the children and just his whole personal reality. And the reason why I think this is it comes back to Neo and why it's so important is if you look at Kanye West's aesthetic lately, everyone that surrounds him needs to copy his aesthetic, which is essentially this look of the people in the Matrix movie. They're all wearing jet black kind of leather coats and black sunglasses. And remember what we talked about with like the sun going out, and me and you have gone to some pretty deep conversations behind all of this stuff. Like, why was Zion underground? What was going on above ground? And that Heaven and Hell music video that came out by Kanye West, I think, was showing us something. And at the end of that, for anyone who doesn't know that music video, regardless if you like this guy's music or not, it doesn't matter. You could watch this music video with it muted. You just need to see it for the symbology. And it's all jet black symbology in the nighttime, showing a world that almost has no sunlight, and everyone's wearing sunglasses. Everyone looks the way that he's been dressing, and everyone's bodies start getting sucked up into a vortex into the sky. And the race of people that are left here after that event are fighting a war.
Yeah.
So this is all tying back to Ares, god of war, and their worship of him. And I see it as a deep kind of, and also this guy's next album is coming out on Pluto's return,
which is it's
222.
Yeah. Well, I mean, sunglasses equals 35 in Chaldean numerology, matching metaverse and simulation. So, what's next on the world stage for all of us? I mean, is there just this really huge depopulation that's going to happen? And again, these are theoretical expressions I'm pointing out here for all of you listeners. Please don't take me so serious here. We just have to have fun with this, because inevitably there's a code playing in the background that's operating all of this kind of stuff, whether you like it or not. But I mean, is this sun going to go out? Is it on a timer? I've really kicked the can around with this whole Mars, occupy Mars, occupy. Is just Mars, I believe, and I'm linking Mars towards the masculine side of the sun. It's like the anger side of the sun. But, when you look at astrology, you see that the lower chakras are where Mars is at. Mars, of course, occupies house number 1. It's Aries, the ram. Of course, it's the lord of the first house, and the color would be red, the lower chakra. And of course, that would perhaps indicate that it's underground, just like you said.
Yeah.
So is occupy Mars just meaning that they're going to be going underground? Is that just really what occupy Mars means? Is you're going to go underground, which is where Zion was in the movie The Matrix.
Yeah. And I think that it's noticeable too, because even alongside the war type kind of narrative, the battle, it's also kind of this push towards just being overstimulated by stuff like the over sexualization of the world and all of that. To me, that's very Mars-like as well.
Yeah.
Because that's a whole other type of war.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and was this Super Bowl, obviously Jupiter's the Bengals, because it's the striped planet. So was it just Mars, the masculine side of the sun, going to war with Jupiter, and Jupiter perhaps could be the father of the sun? So many ways to look at this, right? I mean, these are all theoretical expressions, but is occupy Mars meaning we're going to be going underground, and that means that perhaps there's going to be some cataclysm that is coming our way very soon. And a large portion of the population would get wiped out. Just, things to think about. And again, have it with a light heart, because it's inevitable, ladies and gentlemen. So you just got to have fun with this, and just, and it really, the metaverse is the whole quantum realm telling all of us that, that's what we're moving into quantum equals 27. Which is tied to the word currency and 27. So it's a lot to be said about that 27.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, my work covers the 27 on a weekly basis with a whole bunch of new things. It's like always coming back um, to my cryptocurrency decodes because it plays a huge part in crypto.
It does. It totally does. Um, that 27 is just, whew, it's a big deal number in every which way, slice and dice it down. It's just really such a heavy number. Bringing the alchemical product into its cobalt, which cobalt is the CO, and to me it means chaos and order. And cobalt is used to make batteries. I mean, Tesla used cobalt for their batteries in their cars. So if you just put two and two together, chaos and order is kind of part of the battery, and we're all batteries living inside of a battery. And cobalt, when you look at the alchemical representation of cobalt, what the Royal Society of Chemistry tells you, it's the two little dragons on either side of the goblin. So it's really interesting what that 27 is all about.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, for my work, it's definitely coming back a lot to Jupiter. And that was one of the things that, through the Chaldean cipher, Jupiter equals 27. And there was a bunch of things going on with Facebook again around this whole 27 and 24 number. And for my work, I'm bringing up the 24 a lot, coming back to the zodiac logo of Jupiter. So yeah, there's definitely some importance here. And when we think of things based off of sentiment, it's interesting how the metaverse kind of leading up to it was really positive, and a lot of cryptocurrencies that were tied to metaverse were doing incredible, while a lot of other cryptos were not. And I think it's interesting how they sucked a lot of people in, and then look at what's come of it. It's been a complete disaster for people who are invested in Facebook stock, and also people who were betting on this idea of this kind of short and sweet ride to heaven as an investor. And that's never how it works. Every time you think something is good, it's typically the opposite. And that's what investing is all about, right? When everyone else is fearful, you should get greedy. And when everyone else is greedy, you should get fearful. You always kind of want to go the opposite. The same way, like when all these decoders were coming out, exposing this idea behind the Bengal and the Year of the Tiger, I was thinking, well, they're not looking at the symbology.
Yep. Yeah.
Because the symbols are right there in front of our face.
Yeah, so true. And I mean, heaven equals 27, heaven and hell equal 43.
Yep.
Which,
and that comes back to that
final
that
score
music video.
And the music video. Right.
Yep.
And it's all just one. I mean, Black Sabbath, heaven and hell. I was on my way home from the gym tonight, and I was playing that album. And, I always look at the symbology of why I chose that in my playlist. Why am I listening to this music? And I'm always listening to the messages, and they're just so blatant. I don't know if you get it through your music, but it's just so blatant to me that it's the code talking to me all the time, just never ending. And that song came on my way back just before we got on, Heaven and Hell. And as Black Sabbath said, it goes up. Those guys knew. I mean, they were being used to tell you the truth, but it's always that push pull. So it's the angel and demon, the left eye and the right eye, which are the two thieves. I have this decode coming out called the Two Thieves. Yeah, I have this decode coming out. I've got about 30 slides already. I just put it together last night. Ooh. And there's a song by here's the code that I got, right? So I started out with the song by Wolf Mother called The Joker and the Thief. Maybe you've seen the movie The Hangover, when he goes into the casino and he just completely does the Rain Man on the casino. And during that scene, oh, really? Okay. Well, you've heard that song Joker and the Thief, I'm sure, right?
Maybe if it was played for me, yeah.
Yeah. Well, you've heard of it before, but that song, I started to research it. So I go look at it, and it was heavily influenced by All Along the Watchtower by Bob Dylan. Jimi Hendrix really kind of blew it out of the water. You know that song, All Along the Watchtower. Yeah. Okay, so that song is a story about Jesus and the crucifixion. And if you study the crucifixion at Golgotha, there's two other guys on the right and left-hand side of the Christ, and they're called the Two Thieves. And the representation of this is the two eyes that we have, because these two eyes that we have are devils, because there's the black suns there called the pupils, but these are the two thieves, and they'll steal from you because they're very they're very illusory. They give you a lot of illusions. And then the Christ, being the pineal gland, is the Joker. So in Bob Dylan's song All on the Watchtower, he said that, I can't find my way out of here, said the Joker to the thief. I can't get no relief, right? And it's because of these two eyes that cause a lot of illusions.
Yeah, what I say is I call the pineal gland the first eye.
First eye, yeah.
Yeah, and then I say that the eyes that we are seeing with right now, those are the eyes on the sides that lie.
Yeah. Yep. It's true. And, the story of the two thieves, it's called the penitent and the impotent, whatever. It's a tongue twister. But one guy has a devil on his shoulder and the other guy has an angel. So it's just like one guy, but what it is just, it's when you look at your face in the mirror, you can put the number 8 over your face, over your two eyes, and there's your infinity symbol.
I was bringing that up, like 33, when you take the other 3 and just mirror it, kind of make the letter, the number itself symmetrical, you get the 8.
You get the 8.
And the 8 is the sunglasses.
Sunglasses. Yeah, 19 is the 8th prime number.
Devil, God together in Chaldean is 33.
Yeah. Well, there you go. I mean, the devil is 33. But when you just mentioned, you call it the single eye. And
yeah, the pineal I call it the first eye.
Right. Yeah. Well, in the biblical text, it'll say, let thy eye be single. And the word single is 20, and 20 in the tarot is the judgment card, which is a pretty big deal. And 20, of course, is a huge, huge, huge number, because the word Jesuit equals 20, the word free equals 20, the word pawn equals 20, and the word Mason equals the number 20, along with the word duality. Mm. Yeah. So let thy eye be single. So it is tied to the pineal, which is 23. Pineal is 23, which was interesting because that was what the Rams won as a score, 23-20. Yeah.
And then pineal equals 57 in English ordinal, and the date numerology of yesterday was 57.
57. Yeah.
This was incredible. One quick note about this word RAM, and because we're talking about computers, well, that's random access memory. Yep. So there could be some connection there. Again, talking about the computer, simulation, simulacrum kind of push. And we were also talking about the blowing of the ram's horn. Yep. And how we're in Shemitah, and everything about my decode that I shared today was coming back to Rosh Hashanah. And it's so important. Like anyone who wants to get ahead of finances, if you just pay attention to this exact time frame and pay attention to it every 7 years, you're probably going to be on the right side of all of this, no matter how it goes, whether it's war or direct financial, or if it has to deal with freedom and, sovereignty. I mean, just look at how the last couple of years have went leading up to this exact time. And we're seeing kind of the unfoldment of it all. I mean, it's also funny. I'm thinking about conversations me and you have had fucking like 6 months ago, talking about May and how I was looking at May as the time frame for the pandemic going away, and that was all based on just numerological connections through Spanish flu. And every day I get someone reaching out to me saying oh, did you hear this one place is taking away mandates and restrictions? And I'm like, dude, this is perfect. They're setting, this is a time loop.
Of course.
Everything is based on this loop. And I have one kind of wild idea that I want to share with you. I was thinking perhaps there's periods of time where they attempt to adjust the script and they're given a little bit of leeway. And this is why they do things in that 2-2-2 or 2-2 cycle. For instance, the big world events are always seemingly in twos, and the 22 or the 2-2-2. And of course, that's why this year is such a pivotal, such an incredible time. But I'm just thinking like maybe there's a time frame where they're following the script, either that be the Bible, perhaps the Bible is literally the script that is being followed by these apex predators, and there's a quality of it that is 100% organic, of course, as you've proven in your work time and time again. But perhaps there are little moments, glimpses in this timeline where they go against the creator or against the script slightly to impose their changes, to kind of like play the game of chess. And if there's a little bit of, if the players, us, start becoming in more of like a power position, they have these time frames, these time slots to interject and put into place whatever they need to, the influence to sort of make us decide how we want to react to them, whether we fall for the psyop or not, however it goes. But I was thinking about that recently, how like there is some quality to some of the things that are going on here that are absolutely man-made, and we absolutely, some of us just have to like accept that. I could imagine there's something deeper to everything that is seemingly controlled by man, but I'm being a little bit more open-minded because I'm seeing these connections of the time loop. For instance, this whole C word thing being so similar to Spanish flu, everything about it, even the narratives of moving into war.
Yeah.
It's really making me think now, like, wow, maybe there's a time frame where they could get away with being a little bit more controlling against the script.
Yeah. I mean, I'm so open to anything at this point now. Although, you know how I roll with the organic side because of just everything that I've decoded. It just keeps going back to the organic. And then, where do we draw the line? I'm at that point posing the question even to myself when I look in the mirror, where do we draw the line to say, well, now it's not organic? Because I can decode anything at this point and I can show you the organic side. So for me, it's just very challenging to say, well, there's something beyond or outside of the organic side, right? But then you bring in the free will aspect, and then you're like, well, Logan said there's free will, because I have postulated a long time ago there wasn't such a thing, and I go back and forth, 'cause I can't make my mind up, and that's okay. I'm totally cool with that. But I think the idea of having free will is pretty cool. I think it's very freeing, so to speak.
It's cute.
Right? It's cute. It's fun. But I think for me personally, I've completely let go. And now everything I do is in the code. The code is literally using me. And it's in the last decode I just did on the number 56, the timestamp of that. And those of you that are listeners, subscribers and followers to many channels, if you start to look at the timestamps, as a content creator, Jordan, that when you create a video, it'll have 2 times listed. When you go in your video catalog, it'll have 1 second added. And then the video itself, when people click on it, it'll be 1 second less. And so now you have duality in the videos. So it's always the bleeding of these numbers. So 29 becomes 30, and that becomes 59. 30 becomes 31, and it becomes 61. There's always a pairing going on. And that's no exclusion with the YouTube and the videos. But anyway, the timestamp of my 56 decoded was 1 hour, 13 minutes, and 5 seconds, which is a total of 19. And the whole 56 was revolving around the sun, which is 19.
Right.
It was all wrapped around that. And so where do we draw the line on saying, well, Logan, you're not being used by the code? You're not, this is art. You're creating this. Yeah, I'm creating it, but yet I've let go completely. Right. And I feel it's the most freeing thing to do. And then it allows me to move into what, you have really coined beautifully. Love is allowing. And then I realize I know how magic works. And, I got a podcast coming out with Zach on Sunday. I don't even know what's going to happen during that time period. But I'm just so open to things just sharing the code.
That is very much why I just sort of broke down what I was saying before. And again, it's like almost unfathomable to meet in the middle here, you know? And this isn't to talk about anyone's polarized views. And I love all the work of all the decoders. I think it's doing its part
Yeah, me too.
in the puzzle, and I'm grateful for it. But you know, what I was, and again, it's extremely hard to articulate because it's a newer theory that I've had. But when I'm seeing some of these connections to events that are, you know, it's like almost too good to be true sometimes, that it could possibly be natural just because of the coding of it. That's why I said perhaps there's time frames. Maybe it is 2 years and 2 months, and this is a time frame where the apex predators can interject into the natural code, and perhaps where they're quote unquote being used by the code kind of rubs off. And this is why we have the kind of interjection of chaos, you know, true chaos. And it starts to create a lot of good things, actually, though. Like, I'll give an example of what I'm saying. When I asked people when I was first starting my YouTube channel, I used to do this thing where I would ask people, like, hey, what was your first red pill moment? It was just, you know, for fun. And like 90% of people said 9/11. Now, with that being said, when I've talked to people recently, especially people who are successful, like people that are doing well in business or creating, you know, becoming content creators, I'm seeing that a lot of them across the board are saying this pandemic has been the greatest time of their life. Like, it's been the most transformative. So, I mean, is it coincidence that 9/11 and this pandemic are 222 months apart?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I'm not here to argue, and I love your perspective because you've proven it. You know, that's the big thing. Like, anyone who wants to try to attempt to argue with your perspective, your truth, they clearly haven't watched your content. I mean, come on now. Like, anyone who watches your content, whether they're extremely knowledgeable in decoding or not, obviously, if you do have a base knowledge, it would be a lot easier for you to understand what it is that you're doing. But beyond that, like, I mean, once you start getting down to it at the molecular level, at the elemental level, it's just undeniable. I can't ever argue such. And I even said this one time before I was a decoder. I was writing some music, playing guitar, and when I was done playing the guitar line, I literally felt as if I didn't even write that music. I felt like it came to me somehow. Like, I literally felt this at the core of my soul. I was like, I don't even know how I just came up with this. Like, it wasn't that it was good. It wasn't that it was bad. It was just I couldn't tap onto the influential origin of it. You know, like, you listen to some metal music or hip hop music or whatever, and then you make some art and it could be influenced from that. I don't think even that it was unique. I almost felt like I made the song already in another timeline, and I was like aligning with it and remembering it. Like, I feel like we're all suffering from amnesia.
Yeah.
Like, we literally have done this before. And that's why through this like so-called enlightenment period, whatever you want to call it, you know, I literally feel like we're just remembering what we always were, like what we always knew. Like, me and you just always knew this shit. And like, the reason we met and the reason we started talking and doing what we're doing on the world stage is to, you know, bring together this community of people who are remembering what they've forgotten. And this is all just like, you know, it's a beautiful thing to watch it happen. But beyond that, you know, it's not for me it's not about the argument whether it's organic or if it's completely, you know, being done by some particular nefarious group of people. You know, there's so many ways of proving both sides of those things. But moreover, it's just it's that if I only pick one of those sides, I'm never going to be able to expand, because I'm shutting down my ability to consciously expand. If I just say this is 100% truth, it has to be done by this group of nefarious people, well, then you're disregarding all the other things, and it's most likely due to your lack of understanding of the more esoteric knowledge and wisdom.
Yeah. I mean, you're totally spot on. There's no really way to to prove either theory in an absolute format or an absolute conclusion, because there's always going to be another layer that you can bring into it and observe and say, see that right there. And so yeah, I just think, I love how the Upanishads, the Vedas, and the Hinduism and the Buddhist traditions, they'll tell you that everything's an incarnation of God. It's everything. It's literally in every single crevice. And I wanted to share with you this fun. I'll make it quick. So, because it was kind of really went deep down that rabbit hole. So, as you know, I've been wanting to go on a mushroom trip, and I haven't done that. And so I had a friend of mine give me some of this chocolate, and it has mushrooms in it.
Oh,
it's
yeah.
like really professionally made. And yeah. And so I came home one day last week, and I came home from the gym. I was on an empty stomach, and I was like, okay, I'm just going to take a quarter of the dose, and just maybe I'll get something, let's see how it is here. And this was the night that I was decoding how to decode using the satanic cipher, right? Which, instantly a lot of people are going to be drafted towards, oh, it means the devil. No, it's just named that because it's tied to 666 and the 36 being the 666, the 36 triangular number. But nonetheless, here it was. And I'm sitting there creating the presentation. And so when I got home, I took a quarter of the dose, and I'm sitting there doing the presentation. All of a sudden it starts to kick in. And I have never felt this before, right? Because I have never done it, right?
Yeah.
And so like I started to yawn like mad crazy.
Yeah.
I'm like, this sucks. What the hell?
Were your eyes watering?
All that, eyes watering. I was yawning. And then it's 80 degrees in my apartment, and I started to get freezing cold.
Yeah.
Because it's a vascular restrictor.
For sure.
So I put long pants on my sweatshirt, and now everything started to become 3-dimensional. And that was the night that I couldn't finish the satanic, how to decode from there. But the takeaway I got was that if you want the knowledge, it comes with a price tag. And that is the biting of the apple. If you want to know good and bad, and as it says in the theological text, it says, now that you have the knowledge, you've become like one of us. Now you will face death.
Bro, 100%. Like one of my biggest mushroom trips I've ever taken. And then I want to get back to your story, but I literally like got to the peak of it. And then I felt like I was in that Genesis story of like the biting of the apple. And what was so wild is I have this conversation. Eve hands over the fruit. I'm like, yeah, let's do this. Cause like, I felt like I was really me, like I didn't feel like I was some other character. Yep. And the moment I bit into the apple, like as my teeth are sinking into it, I became the apple. And it was awesome. What
was that like?
It was fucking crazy. Like it was fucking crazy to become the knowledge itself.
Wow.
Because that's what I was seeing, is that like what happens is it's not only like the flesh, the bite, it's the seed. Yeah. Like just like we're the seed, you know? And that was really something else, to become the apple, then feel the sort of like the breakdown of the knowledge of the stem and the seeds, and just like all of the things, all of the pieces of it, but as part of you. It looked like hieroglyphics, and it was a mind-blowing experience, but it made me so humble,
Yeah.
Like I sat there and I was like, wow,
interesting.
I don't know anything.
Yeah.
Like I literally just sat there and I was like, I don't know anything. Like I spent all this time, and this was a while ago. Like it was long enough now to the point where like I don't even recognize that self anymore, because I've had a huge transformation. But during that process of going through that, I think I told you, like when I first got into mushrooms, I did one mushroom trip every weekend for like 2 months.
Oh wow.
And I was increasing the doses every time. So I started at like 1.5 just to try it. Then I did like 4, then 5. Then
what do you think the sweet spot was for you?
Well, what I will say is like the one that I did was like 8 or 9.
Wow.
That was terrifying. Like,
Wow.
yeah, I
Did you
like
get
saw,
nauseated, dude? Because I like that little bit I took. I was like, I got a little nauseated, and I can't stand that feeling. So I was like,
yeah, I had to lay
this
down.
part sucks.
I had to lay down. I had to shut off the lights. Like the lights, I could like read what the lights were saying. It was fucked up.
That's becoming
It was
one
like
with everything.
subtitles. There was like subtitles on the lights in my house.
Closed caption everywhere.
Yeah, it was something else. That one was really epic. But yeah, like as for a sweet spot, I mean, what I have learned since, especially like getting into decoding, you know, like this is a whole different ball game. Not only just decoding for fun, but doing it as like my life's work. Being an artist and being a decoder as my life's work and then doing mushrooms is like a whole different level. I don't need to take nearly as much as I used to get a
Mm.
epic effect. So now I could do like 3 or 2 grams even, and it like takes me to where I need to go. And what's funny about it now is like when I get in that zone, I'm like, oh, I've been here before. Like
Yeah, yeah.
I feel like I've been put back in like, you know, it's like here you go, you're right back to where you were. Like enjoy the ride. And when you're first getting into doing mushrooms regularly, there's definitely a kind of there could be a sour taste left in your mouth with experiences, whether
Uh,
that be an experience of nausea or an experience of, you know, whatever it is, like, or being super cold. Like really skinny people that have very little muscle or fat on their body, when they
yeah.
do mushrooms, they just get so cold and they're shivering.
Oh,
And they
yeah.
get what happens when the mind fixates on the shivering and you don't have someone there with you to help, like to kind of, I call this person a fisherman. Like if I was with you during this experience, I would have been able to like, you know, navigate the waters with you. But when
Right.
you're alone, you're just going through all these like phases, and you're not really like there with someone else who's experienced it to help you along. So yeah, if you start shivering and the mind fixates on the shivering, the first thing that happens is you enter a state of fear where you think you're never going to stop shivering, so you just stay there, and you'll be shivering yourself to like fucking insanity, you know what I
Mm, that
mean,
makes sense.
until your mind can ease and let go. Like the thing that I loved about mushrooms as I got a little bit more used to taking them is it's all about letting go.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's all about letting go. Don't think you know everything. Don't think you're happy. Don't be afraid of tapping into some trauma of your past. Like let all of that stuff just surface, you know, cry, do all the things, like because you don't normally get that opportunity when you're not there. You
Yeah.
know what I'm saying? Like you don't
Totally.
normally get that opportunity. So now that it's here, now that you're getting to taste it, like fucking ride the wave.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's definitely a contraction kind of experience because you know vascular restriction is contraction, so you're going within, you're going down, and that's why ayahuasca and mushrooms, it's all the black, it's the black, it's going deep down, and that's what the apple is. And you know, is it coincidental that apple in numerology equals 25, just like the word adversary? Because the darkness is your adversary, because when you go down in the pits of hell, that's where the secrets are. That's why you go back to the theological text and it says, you know, now that now that you've bit the apple and you know what good and bad means, you're going to die. Right. So I think, you know, their ignorance is bliss is kind of interesting, but that 25 is interesting in its own sense. And you know, you end up becoming your ego, which is your adversary. And,
Mm-hmm.
you know, the black sun equals 25. So
Agent Smith.
Agent Smith, yeah. So you become your own adversary through the unbalancing of your contraction and expansion. And that's what life's all about. It's expansion and contraction. It's Tropic of Capricorn, Tropic of Cancer. It's back and forth. And the sun is just a pendulum. It goes back and forth as it moves through the sky, not obviously like a pendulum. And then if you want to look at time, it's the best representation of is a grandfather clock as the pendulum moves back and forth,
Right.
and you get the tick tock. So
And that's
it's,
also the symbology with the scythe, with Saturn as Father Time spinning the
yep,
zodiac wheel.
yep, yep.
I
That's
mean,
exactly
one
right.
amazing thing also that I just remembered from an older decode is you were talking about the 20s with like 20 coming into Mason and Jesuit and some other things.
Yep.
And Tree of Knowledge equals 71 in Chaldean, which is the 20th prime. So, um, tree of knowledge is what we were just talking about before with like this apple or forbidden fruit concept.
Tree of knowledge is 71.
Yeah, tree of knowledge.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the word helios in the original Greek spelling equals 71, which is the sun.
Mm.
Yeah. So it's, as I've said, I mean, you get Helios, the sun running duality, running down here, and us being pawns. And, we're all Masons, whether you want to belong to a lodge or not, because the word Mason means builder. And that's what we all do. Even if you're not a content creator, those of you that are listening, if you're not an artist, if you go to work and you work on a computer, you're creating something. If you talk to somebody, you're creating something. Having a conversation with your neighbor over a beer or a glass of wine is creating something.
Oh, 100%. Like I was having this conversation with somebody recently who was talking like really negatively about about like manifestation and what it means. And even in a meeting that I had today, I was breaking down like a lot of people don't actually know what manifesting is because they don't understand that it's the basic alchemy of turning ideas into something. That's all it really actually is. Like instead of you being, subordinate to the idea, or instead of letting the ideas control you, you just decide to start being, you start to allow the ideas, whatever they are. And what I mean by that is like, if you have some creative idea, whoever's listening to this, fucking own it, share it with the world. Stop being so soft and scared about everyone. Don't care about judgment. They don't exist. No one exists. Every single day I make content and somebody's a hater, somebody's really down with it and it helps them. You know, I had to get through those loops to finally just get to a place where like all I care about is love. And if somebody really wants to bring some hate to my feet, then I'll just transmute that back into love. So like you could do whatever you want to do, but I've built a system for me that allows me to keep manifesting abundance because I am putting out ideas into the world every day. And that's really all that it is, coming back to exactly what you just said, the builder. Also, builder is 71 in English ordinal, coming back to the 20, like we were just talking about.
Yeah. Yep. That 7120 is a big deal. And, if you just really add it up, I found that those of you that are decoders have found that when you take the number and you add it to its prime number, you get an outcome, and that's pretty significant. So I'm going to suggest anyone out there who is a decoder, I'm sure all of you listening to this are, when you find your numbers and you're into the primes, add up the number with the prime that it's linked to and try to go from there. And, 71 and 20 is 91. 91 is battery. The word battery equals 91. And we know the sun's a battery. So, and, what's really interesting about the sun is that, you have chaos and order. And chaos is 19, which is the sun. Which is, chaos is, the sun is complete chaos.
Yes.
Because that's what light just shines down. It doesn't tell you where it's going to go. It doesn't give you, direction. It doesn't say, okay, I'm going to be you can read its delivery from east to west, how it moves and all, but it's just literally heat and radioactivity. That's all chaos. And then the order is 20. So chaos is 19, order is 20. And it's us, it's as mankind, as the pawns, as the Masons, as the builders, we have to be conscious and create the order. And I think part of this game is becoming conscious of the code and realizing that, once you become conscious of the code, you can let go and the code just kind of directs you. I really kind of get a sense of that. And that's kind of where I'm at this point in my research with everything. So,
yeah, dude, I really resonate with that. Order out of chaos equals 71, 20th prime.
There you go.
So, it's pretty interesting. Like, it's not only happening with conversations that me and you've had on podcasts, but also within my own work. Like, you notice what's happening, guys, like how we just caught a number and now everything we're saying is starting to follow that number pattern. Like, that's fucking insane.
It is.
Every key term that you're bringing up is still coming back to the 71 and 20 connection. Like, I don't know what to say, like, it's just, I get mind blown by the code the more and more I decode. Just even, I think I brought it up to you the other day, I'm working more on utilizing the periodic table as part of my work. And that is crazy for me because I already have all of this experience. So, just one presentation that I started working on was wow, all the connections, just mind blowing.
Yeah, yeah, it's the same for me because you for all these years of decoding, I've primarily focused on using the Chaldean as my foundation, and I'd never really branched off. I mean, sure, I would mess around with the English, of course, because it's the sister of Chaldean or brother. But then I started using the Francis Bacon, and I just jumped into the Satanic, and now I can see the luxury of all these codes. And as I said before in my other decodes, the number 9 is the very reason why you can find truth in all these ciphers, because the number 9 is the repeater number. So, and they all have the number 9 embedded inside of them. So it is that number 9 that is going to make every cipher connect. And so it just may take you a few more extra steps to figure it out. But the periodic, but that's how it was for me. Like now I'm like a kid in a candy store. I created my base with the Chaldean, and I've used that as my foundation. And now branching off has just opened up a world. I'm like, wow, now I can see all of it. It's just a big tree. All the ciphers to me is just a tree with all the branches and the leaves. That's it. And then you get to the tree trunk and everything stems from that. And the periodic table to me is the motherboard. The periodic table is the motherboard. And what's interesting about the periodic table, the last element that they've discovered, that they've released anyway, is called Organoson, which is OG, which is it's the OG. It's the OG of the periodic table. And I started decoding that, Jordan, and man, it's crazy. It's a kind of hilarious that it's the OG. So I actually have a decode coming out on that, the OG of the periodic table. So it's that last element, which is
I'm looking at the symbol, the logo of it, and it's like the rainbow blocks.
Yep.
Blocks of the rainbow.
Yep.
And that's transmutation.
Transmutation. But it's that OG. I mean, why was it OG and the original gangster? Why is it that way? And so many ways to look at that. I mean, OG is 73, and 73 is the 21st prime number, which is tied to the world card. 21 tied to the big names, Saturn, and Zeus is 21. And so it's just really interesting how all these things kind of sync up like that when you really start to dive into the periodic table.
Yeah. And I think, one of the things that I've seen to be pretty mind-blowing is the connection to the money side of things, like the market. Like when I've started decoding the market, it was mind-blowing, because these numbers are showing up in the prices of these stocks or cryptocurrencies and the dates that they're happening on. And that's where it really gets wild, where like how there's 17,000 cryptocurrencies. I mean, there's
how many there are now?
Something like that. Yeah.
Are you kidding me?
I only pay attention to maybe like 10, but I predominantly work on about 5. And even with that, it's a handful, because it's going 24/7. But with that being said, I mean, like my whole decode today was talking about the number 43 and the tie to the 14th prime number. And, 43 was the final score of the Super Bowl. And like literally within 24 hours of this Super Bowl event, Bitcoin hits $43,000.
Of course it does.
And the whole time during the Super Bowl, it was trading at $41,000. So that's the mirror of 14.
Yep. And that's the prime number. I mean, even the word 43 equals 43.
Yeah, and Chaldean, right? How mind-blowing is that? Yep. I've shown that many times, how when you actually type out in English a word, a number, or multiple numbers, it will equal its own value. Like that's absolutely mind-blowing. Yeah, and that comes back to the Hebrew gematria aspect, like original gematria, which I've been studying more lately in my free time. And isopsophy is kind of showing you that the origin of the word was coming from the original design of the way the letters were shaped and the energy and the way it was perceived. And it's really amazing. Like when you start learning the meaning of each number in Hebrew, each letter, when you start learning the meanings, it's like, wow, man, this is fascinating stuff. Like how every single aspect of every word, each letter that makes up the word, and then the value of it, which is gematria, is just, it's spot on every time to all these bigger connections. And that's a base knowledge that I think a lot of decoders lack, unfortunately. Like a lot of decoders don't go through the the steps of studying a little bit about what gematria actually is. They
Yeah.
just find some of these videos of people using Gematrinator, and then they start going for the gold, and they're just typing shit in and, matching the reverse full reduction with the full reduction of another cipher that has completely different, no
Yeah.
connections whatsoever. And that's stuff that could really get dicey. So for any decoders out there, definitely check out Logan's work. Obviously, this is on your channel, so people know that, but like, whilst they're studying your work and seeing that you're only using the Chaldean, know the reason behind that. Because a lot of the time when people are going to other gematria channels, even mine, you're going to see me using things that aren't just the Chaldean. And I'm consciously making an effort to make sure that all of my connections are within the cipher themselves, or at least come back to a mythology, whether that be Greek, Roman, even Egyptian. I'm making connections based off this base knowledge. It's not just typing words in, It's very important because people are getting really into this decoding thing right now. And I'm noticing that there's a lot of wasted energy because people are not going back and learning the basics. And like everything in life, if you want to learn an instrument or learn any skill, learn the basics so that later on you don't need to go back and, edit bad habits.
Yeah, no, I totally concur. I mean, those of you that, because I have a lot of people obviously that ask me this question, why Chaldean? What's so special about it? Especially people coming over from other channels that haven't really seen the use of it. And I came out with a slide, and it's very simple, ladies and gentlemen. If you just take the word Chaldean and you type it into the Chaldean numerology cipher, it's going to give you 27. And the word currency equals 27. The word golden equals 27. But what's really fascinating is if you type in all the letters of the alphabet A through Z, it's going to give you a total in Chaldean of 103. And 103 is the 27th prime number. So this is the very reason why personally I feel Chaldean is the most purest cipher on the planet. And then English is kind of, the co-writer of it all. Septenary has its own play in it because it's really, septenary is tied to the patterns of the sun and all that kind of stuff. So that's the very reason why. And Chaldean works off of phonetics, which is, frequencies of these letters. And then if you look at the Chaldean, and the way the words and letters, the way the letters are, you'll see that these letters almost look identical in their shapes when you start to bring them into kind of coming together, and, right. For example, when you look at the letter F, it's the number 8 in Chaldean, and that's a direct match to the letter P. And P and F, when you kind of put them side by side, the P is the F is a broken P.
Right.
So you can start to look at these, and that's where the Chaldean to me starts to stand high and mighty and all this kind of stuff beyond what I just said about the 103.27.
And also the Chaldeans just, baseline knew that the universe is built by vibrations and that everything is vibrational frequency, and that every frequency has some sort of an attraction to its equal frequency, and that there needs to be a balance of these vibrational frequencies. So just that in and of itself is so wise. And so, they were renowned astronomers and astrologers as well. So they were truthfully astrologers. They were actually observing the sky, which most astrologers today do not do. They observe their computer screen.
Yep.
And that's no negative. I'm not speaking any, not throwing shade at anyone, but it's just, we have a completely, most of what's happening today in our world is through learned experience, not necessarily experienced experience.
Yeah. Yeah, because we rely on these machines, and then once it spits out an outcome, that's it. That's my final answer. Right.
Well, that's what I love about returning everything back to the mythologies. Just breaking everything back and returning it down to that. It's been extremely helpful, and it's allowed me to share a work that's very unique, a perspective on decoding that hasn't, I suppose, been popularized just yet. And I do know that there's a lot of decoders out there that are talking about the esoteric meanings of these mythologies and how they're tied to everything. But then bringing in that gematria layer was what really sealed the deal for me, especially with the Chaldean cipher. So I agree with you. There's been so many mind-blowing connections that I made that after back testing it across so many different cultures and, other connections, I'm like, wow, it's too incredible actually for the mind to fathom.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely a wonder. One of the wonders of the world. I feel now we're in this decoding. It's blowing up. Decoding is it's taken off like no other. It's really a big trending thing right now.
It really is. And like, particularly people that are just interested in, some way of applying it. And that's one of the things that I try to help people with is like, whatever it is that you're doing in life, like it's nice to do it, but always have a rhyme and reason. Make sure it serves your higher purpose. Make sure that you're doing it for something that benefits you on a conscious level and not necessarily a monetary level or for, looking smart. A lot of people just like having knowledge to share it. They don't actually want to help people.
Yeah.
Some people just like to be know-it-alls, and this isn't the type of mindset that's going to keep this ball rolling for team freedom or team seeker.
Yeah.
There's a very selfish quality to a lot of this new knowledge. And I believe people like us and a lot of other great decoders are doing our work to help actually set minds free, because once the mind is set free, everything else becomes free.
Yeah, very wise words there. That's why I have high hopes for me coming together with Zach this Sunday. And I don't know what's going to happen, but I hope we can just say, hey, let's just connect numbers like we're doing here today. Like we're not really talking about, we have mentioned it, but forget about organic versus inorganic. If we could just leave that alone, let's just talk numbers. Let's just connect numbers. That's it. That's all I want to do.
100%.
You know what I mean? Because ultimately we're not going to agree upon anything, on everything. There's going to be some things that we just don't see eye to eye on. And I think the love is allowing is there's the proper time to bring that in. And then not trying to be right. That's
100%. I mean, nobody benefits from that. Like all parties who were involved here, you and Zach are extremely intelligent people who are, just fucking setting the stage for the entire decoding narrative, and expanding a lot of people's consciousnesses and making this whole art form popular. So I would look at it for that. It's not about being the first or about being the best or the one who's right or the one who's wrong. It's about like, hey, we're collaborating, and that collaboration in and of itself is what allows more and more people to become part of the team rather than being in this division sort of nonsense that's been going on across all cultures and all religions and all cults. And it's very predominant in this current age to be completely trapped in duality consciousness and want to pick the winning team. Like, that's not actually what it's about when the winning team only seeks to be right.
Yeah.
Because team flat earth, team tropical astrology is the truth and sidereal is not, like all of that stuff. It kind of just gets so convoluted and based on the division, and it doesn't help. It really doesn't help. And I've sort of brought this up a couple times in recent live streams, is how I want to dedicate this entire year, even though I'm not really like I don't look at things based on timelines like that, but if I had to for a moment, just to make things simple, I would love to dedicate this entire year to just bringing together as many decoders as possible.
Yeah, I totally concur. I'm pulling cards as you're talking, and the 6 of Hearts pops up, and that is the card of pure love and collaboration right there. So cards always speak. It's just so fun. I have so much fun with these cards. I'm totally into that too, because I think I've told you, next year I really want to shift directions in my career when I hit 50, and perhaps move into either music or food. I haven't figured that out. I did say music, but we'll see. So
that's what I'm on now. Like I'm making a lot of music behind the scenes, and I am practicing, just putting music into my daily regimen every day I try to make some music because I've noticed that that's where I feel most pure and most in the now. It's like a form of meditation for me.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I've learned that my work has done to me, which now I've become very comfortable with, but what it did to me in the past was it made me so like I just was always worrying about time and timing, and wondering like, oh, what's the market going to do, what's going to happen next. And I just learned that that's not very, like, for me to be open and just expose something about myself, to be real with everyone. I'm over that shit. Like, this whole like experience of what I'm doing now is about creation. It's not about getting caught up in time, because that's all anxiety, that's all ego, that's all worrying about tomorrow. And tomorrow doesn't exist, because the only thing how are you living your life if you're always worried about tomorrow?
Yeah. No, it's so true, man. I totally concur, because when you get like, when I'm decoding, man, I am so happy. I'm in like never land, and it just makes me so sad. It gives me a lot of satisfaction. And that rolls into music when I'm playing the guitar, piano, and making some electronic music. I'm in the now moment, and there's absolutely no negativity in my life. None. It's just a pure state of bliss when I'm in music mode.
Yeah, that's exactly been the reason why I've shifted my YouTube content from being less about the technical analysis and the charts and more about the decoding. Like, I've shifted my work towards that, because that was always my mission from the start. It was to get people to learn the code, right? Like, there's a million other people out there sharing their sentiments on markets.
Yep.
Like, even though I do it in a very unique way, because I'm utilizing like Fibonacci numbers and primes and all this, mathematics background that I have. But beyond that, I think the most important piece to it all is, why are we getting certain energies in the market at certain times, and what we could do to like prepare ourselves emotionally, mentally, financially, whatever it is, so that we could calmly transition into that moment when it arrives. What I've learned is there's a quality to it that we all have to be careful with. And this is for the predictors out there, the people that are using gematria to predict sports, or the people that are using it to predict the fucking world ending. When you get caught up in that stuff, it brings about this kind of energy that you have to always be like cautious of, you always have to think about. And when I'm just purely decoding to share the code with the world, I feel completely blissful, just like being a musician. It's a very similar feeling. So I resonate a lot with what you're saying, because I know your form of decoding is not to push predictions or, anything like that. You're very much neutral and there to share the code. What's going on here and how it's organically surfacing into this reality. So that's I've learned a lot actually through you with that, because of paying attention to your work and the way you deliver it, whilst some decoders out there are really, really focused on the predictions and trying to use it to figure out what's going to happen next. And there is something cute about all of that. There's something cool about it. Like, even today, being able to see the Rams win the Super Bowl and how that all played out, like, yeah, it's fun. It's interesting, but I don't lose sleep over it.
Yeah. I appreciate the kudos first and foremost. And I concur, when I posted my Super Bowl winner 2 weeks ago, I said, this is just for entertainment. I don't care who wins. And guess what? I didn't even watch the game. I was decoding last night, man. I didn't even watch the game. And then, about 10:30, I think I looked up and I'm like, oh, it's 10:30. The game's over. And I looked and I caught the score and I just kind of smiled. I'm like, okay, I got it right. But it's not like I didn't rush to Facebook and say, hey, look I got the score right. I didn't rush to my YouTube to say that I got it right. I don't care. I could care less. Okay, I got it right. And I definitely know that I could make a career out of sports predictions with the methodology that I use, because I've now successfully chosen the winner for the past 3 years. I didn't post it the first year, the 3 years ago, but I successfully have since I've been doing this. And that's, I'm not going to share this stuff because I know people are going to hound me for it, but if you want to learn, perhaps if that's what you want to do, you got to start studying the cards, because the answers are all in the cards of illumination, the typical poker deck. You got to figure out how this system works. And actually, my friend Sharon, who does the cards, she's got a course coming out in, I think she said March or April, and um, I never have taken her course. She's like, you should take my course. And I haven't, because I've just been learning it myself, but I'm going to probably take her course this time, just to get her mindset behind it, and just kind of sit in the background and learn, learn a different way. And so, I'll be sharing that with my community. Anybody that wants to learn the cards of illumination and how they move around and how they really navigate over our lives, feel free to send me an email, decodeyourreality@gmail, inquire about that. I'm going to be definitely, just to help Sharon out. She wants to teach this course to people. She's done it a lot of times. So it'll be a lot of fun.
Yeah, man, that's amazing. I mean, you were the first person I ever saw working with the cards. And then, my card was the one that you kind of you were all happy, kind of blowing me up about, because I guess it's a special card.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was my first kind of introduction to the cards. I've never saw anyone use them. And I remember I even gave you a shout out for that, because you're really the first person I've ever seen decoding with a lot of things. So, but the cards were particularly interesting. And it was around the time that I started declining to do readings, because I don't have the time, and my sort of my business and my schedule doesn't help with adding those sorts of things to my plate. But right around the time that I was sort of backing up and saying, okay, I don't think doing readings is my style right now, is when you started sharing this information with me about the cards through my code. And then also, me just paying more attention to how you utilize them. And I could totally see the merit for sure in decoding people.
Huh. Yeah. I mean, I bring the card. So when I do my readings, as you know, I take your astrology chart, and then I take your cards of illumination. You have 4 primary cards, and I bring them into the charts. And I do that with graphics, and I do that on the fly, sharing my screen during a Zoom meeting we meet up with. That's how I do my readings. This is a methodology that I've never seen anybody use. And I also bring the tarot into it. And once you start to put the cards in the astrological chart, it really opens up a lot more doors to see how your blueprint is working all the time. And that really is your owner's manual. You have an owner's manual in the glove box of your car. Well, the owner's manual for you is in the stars. It's in the cards. It's in the tarot. It's in prime numbers that you're attached to. It's in your birthday. It's in your soul contract with numerology. And so we bring all these layers together: human design, Enneagram, personality types, Mayan astrology. You bring all these things together, and it just gives you such a broader picture of you being the snowflake. And, for you, Jordan, I mean, you're such a beautiful human being, and you have this beautiful 7 of diamonds birth card, which is the 33rd card in the deck. And that 33 is, just to give you another connection for you. I was just talking about this with Santos on my last podcast that I was on with the Syncretism Society this past Saturday. And we were talking about the Hebrew letters. And there are 3 mother letters. Do you know that? You probably know, because you studied it. Right?
Actually, no, I've never heard this term used before. What's the Hebrew term for this, if you know? Because
I don't know the Hebrew term for it, but it's there are 3 mother letters out of the 22. Mm-hmm. And it's Aleph, Mem, and Shin, which Aleph is 1, Mem is 13, and Shin is 19. And when you add all those up, you get 33.
Yep.
And that's your birth card. 33, the 33rd card in the deck. So it's really interesting. And then, I found this massive, I can drop this truth bomb for all of you that have visuals in your mind right now. Found this massive thing yesterday, which if you take the peace sign and you overlay it onto a natal chart, and then you take the crucifixion, it's the peace sign. The Christ fits right over that peace sign. And the peace sign, what's fascinating about it is the guy who created it has the 7 of diamonds as his birth card, which is the 33rd card in the deck.
Right.
So this is the code, the organic code, so beautifully, eloquently sharing its expressions with all of us. And I think,
yeah, I mean, what really blew my mind about that particular connection was because of the time I was born. And that's what just completely blew me away, because I
Yeah,
was born at
137, right?
1:37 p.m. and that's the 33rd prime
Prime
number.
number. Yep.
So it's just wild because I already knew that for a little bit of time, and then you telling me about the 33rd card in the deck, and I was just like, whoa.
Yeah.
That's pretty wild, man.
Yeah. Yeah,
It's
totally.
also one note about a crazy date connection for anyone out there that wants to have a little bit of fun with this. If you take the day of March 3rd, 3 of the year 2000, and you take it over to May 5th of 2022, which is coming up pretty soon, the 5/5 date in this 22 year, you get 22 years, 2 months, and 2 days. And what's crazy about March 3rd of 2000 is that's the 303rd, that day leaves 303 days left in that year. And it's pretty wild to see that all come together, because we're in the 222 year right now. And that 33 number that we're talking about, and how I was playing around with that. I had a screenshot I took earlier, something I was working on the sides, and I was just thinking to myself, like, wow, whenever I'm finding more dates in May, of course, coming back to the conversation that we had about May 13th, the next Friday the 13th that we're having, which is a couple days before the eclipse.
Yeah.
Every time I see more connections to May of this year, it's just like, wow, man, May is going to be a wild ride.
I think
But
so.
March of 2000 was the official time frame of the dot-com bubble crash.
Yep.
So I'm really interested in that, because that's a huge connection to the 22s, not only from the amount of years, but the amount of months and days going to this 222 year.
Yeah, and it's all tribute to the sun, because I'm dropping I got my Superstar, which is the Sun Superstar Part 3 coming out, and I got the fast food restaurant McDonald's in there, because McDonald's, the arch, is the pattern that the sun makes, that M, which is the 13th letter, which is tied to gold in the period in the string of pi. But when you look at the sun's pattern as it moves through the 13 months, it's not even 12, but as it moves through the 13-month calendar, you'll see that it forms like a boomerang shape. But more importantly, that boomerang looks like the letter V. And the letter V is the 22nd letter in the English alphabet, and there are only 22 letters in the Hebrew Aramaic alphabet. So the V is so important in the constructs of this reality. And then you bring that into the periodic table, and that is tied to the 23rd element called vanadium. And vanadium is tied to the pineal gland, because pineal equals 23. Yeah. So the sun and the pineal gland are tied together. And that's, you cut your brain open, and the Egyptians had it right. It's the all-seeing eye. And the all-seeing eye is tied to the pineal gland, which is, the heart of the eye, so to speak, the implant, as I like to say. So
also, one thing that's so crazy about McDonald's that you brought that up is their date they were founded on was April 15th. And that's like a huge ritual date. That's the date that the Titanic sank, the Boston Marathon bombing, the Notre Dame fire. So it's pretty interesting that particular day is the day that they were founded.
Yeah, well, I mean, McDonald's is 34, and the town that it was, the first original McDonald's, it was in San Bernardino, California, and the latitude is 34 degrees north, which is a match to McDonald's. Which I know, again, do you think these McDonald brothers were sitting down and saying, we got to open up in San Bernardino because McDonald's equals 34? I mean, no, that's totally not the case.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, also the date numerology, the way that I like to add it up, like whenever we have double digits, so like 4 plus 15 being April 15th, and then 19 plus 55, when you add that all together, that gives you 93. Yeah. And that 93 comes back to Saturn.
Yep.
In English ordinal cipher. So that is absolute. Whenever I see anything connecting to Saturn, I quickly have my my feelers out there, especially because the M logo, the way that it's arched, there's definitely some scythe style imagery in that, all being kind of. Also, one of the other things that you mentioned was the V, and I was thinking the other day about the XRP logo and how that does really look like a V and then an upside down V on top of each other.
Yeah.
And I was, their symbol is the X, and that's the 24th letter in the English alphabet. And that 24 comes back to Jupiter, and then Ripple in Chaldean equals 27, and Jupiter equals 27.
And currency. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, there's something to be said here. Also, V and V, like we were just talking about with the two V's, one on top of each other, upside down, it looks like an X. And in English ordinal, that's 44. And in part of my decode that I was sharing earlier today, it was coming back to these 44s through Los Angeles and City of Angels. And, the Super Bowl was on the 44th day of the year.
Yeah. Yeah. What's fascinating about that connection is the two pyramids, the one inverted, one verted, the two V's, the element that links to that shape is copper. So copper, if you look at the alchemical symbol of copper, it's two V's, one upside down, one right side up together. And copper is the 29th element, and the 29 is the 10th prime number. And the word Mars equals 10. The word Rams equals 10.
Right.
So the V, the 22 linked to the sun, is tied to Mars, and Mars is the masculine side of the sun.
Right.
Which that's the god of war, because when the sun wants to go to war, it's going to call on Mars. Hey, Mars, I need you today. It's interesting, Jordan, because I just had my solar return not too long ago. And weeks before my birthday, I started I noticed this shift in my personality where my irritability just went through the roof. My toleration went really low. I just noticed my conversations were like, as I like to say, I was really using my Mars energy, right? I was just being ruthless and just, I noticed it. And I had a friend of mine, Cheryl, who's a great Vedic astrologer, and her and I are going to be collaborating and doing some podcasts strictly on the Vedic astrology and how it has its say in nature. But she was telling me, she just sent something to me randomly. She's like, hey, remember your Mars is returning, and it's in this nakshatra, which the nakshakras in the Vedic astrology are the star seeds that these zodiac signs are expressing through. So it's kind of like a microclimate, so to speak. You got the climate and the microclimate. The nakshakras are kind of the microclimate, but they have a lot of say in that. And my Mars is in my 19th nakshatra called Mula, which is 19 is tied to the sun. And it's heavy. And it's literally when these planets show up, when they're transiting your chart, when you have these transits in your chart and you have your solar return, and like I have my Mars and my Sagittarius, and my Rahu is there, which is my north node, my black sun. It's a heavy, like masculine, dominant, kind of narcissistic. And I think, when I say that, I'm like, because people think, some people say, oh, you're narcissistic. Everybody's narcissistic at times. We all have that kind of characteristic. It's inescapable. But anyway, when you have the transits coming up, and I had this Mars energy, it's kind of like Mars shows up in my chart. It's like, hey, Logan, I'm here. And now I'm going to attract the things that I need in your life. I'm going to use you to attract things for me to use to end up expressing my energy through. And that's where astrology is so valuable in our reality on a personal level, is reading the astrology and knowing what kind of energies are showing up in your life, and then recognizing them. And then it's kind of like, I didn't even want to go outside, and I didn't want to have any conversations with anybody for a few days. I just wanted to go in hermit mode because the Mars energy was so strong for me.
Yeah, man, I totally have had those moments quite recently as well. And I wonder if that's been sort of something that's affected me. It's interesting that you've had that happen, and how it's affected you by the code.
Totally, man. And it was just when Cheryl had sent me this nice message, it was a gift, because I wasn't paying attention to the transits on my solar. I'm not a big birthday person, but I wasn't really paying attention to the Vedic chart and the transits and where they were sitting, and I was too busy doing other stuff. But when I looked at it, and then I realized how I was showing up and the energy that was moving through me, the Mars was so dominant in my life. And I was just like, wow, and the Mars is just doing its job. It's like when it shows up in your charts, he knocks at your door and he's like, I'm ready to play. And you don't have a say in it. The only
Right.
say you may have is the free will to say, well, I'm not going to go outside for a week. I'm going to stay inside and just not communicate with anybody, or be on your best behavior when you're out there communicating with people, realizing that Mars energy is there waiting to just explode, and it can really be detrimental. You got to be careful.
Yeah, actually somebody that's like kind of a really big impact in my journey, kind of like a mentor figure, was bringing up how like we're all actors, like when you leave your house, whatever you do in the public sphere is you're just pretending, and for whatever reason. And definitely something to be said there. Like if you're attracting this sort of warlike vibrational frequency when you leave your house, you really need to be like the fool. You just need to let everyone win the argument that they want to start. You need to let everyone be aggressive. You need to, like, it keeps coming back to love.
Yep.
Just allow them to be the buffoon that they are, like, and then you just keep it moving. Like that place is so nice, like void of any pride of wanting to be right or wrong, or to prove your point, or if somebody cuts you off in traffic, like whatever the fuck happens. Like I always try to take an inventory of all those moments where negative, like I'll give an example, bro. I had yesterday, I was working on a podcast for my patrons, and I got 1 hour and 30 minutes into this thing. I was literally maybe 95% done, and my computer completely glitched and crashed.
Oh no.
And I lost the whole video. And like at first I was slightly frustrated, just because in the beginning of the podcast it had a lot of like sincere, heartfelt, like I was really pouring it out there, like I was really trying to make it from the heart and just epic, wisdom. And it all just came to like, it all got taken away. And I was a little bit like negative about it, but then I redid the episode, whatever, like
came out really good. You were satisfied with the end product?
Yeah, like I was happy with, pushing through it. And there was a part of me that as I was thinking about redoing it, I was saying to myself, oh, maybe this is a sign, maybe I shouldn't do it, like maybe you need to just like take a break. But there's like a little bit of a stubborn quality in me that's like, no, fuck that, like I'm gonna fucking, I'm gonna make this fucking video, man. Because I like put so much energy into it. And then dude, today I'm making my YouTube video, the decode about the Super Bowl and all this stuff. I'm 28 minutes into it, fucking crashed again. The whole video got wiped away. So it happened to me 2 days in a row that I had, and I've like restarted my computer. I've like ran some things on it. Like I don't really know what it is, but what I've noticed is when I redo it, after I have that slight reaction of frustration, because I'm like, again, and also like I had like 4 meetings today. I was super fucking busy. So for me to like have to redo something is not conducive to my schedule, like super busy. So yeah, with that being said, it's like, it's not just like, oh, you could make it over again and it's all good. It's like, no, I need to cancel shit that I have going on. And like it's definitely not chill, so, and I want to also have free time, to play guitar and to cook my own meals and do whatever I got to do. Like I want to live my life. But then when it happened again today, I reacted to the process like so much better than I did yesterday, where I was just like, of course this happens again, of course. Like, and I just like laughed about it and it was fucking hilarious, and I just moved on. I redid the video. I thought it was a great video. I do all my work in one takes, so there's no editing. It just goes straight from recording to uploading to YouTube.
That's how I do it too. Yeah.
Yeah. And I was like, now I'm sort of anticipating this type of energy as like a sign. It definitely is a sign, because it's happened 2 days in a row, like during the same exact process. It's not like me being in a Zoom meeting or me like, doing anything with a private client on Discord or whatever. It's literally whilst I'm making a fucking video. It's like the whole thing crashes. And so it's just like really interesting, like how to react to stuff like that. And I just look at it all as better, as a good sign. Like I've told many people this: when you drop your phone on the floor, or if you drop a glass, you spill something, you have an opportunity to react. And even if people are being negative to you, and this is where it comes full circle to what you were saying, like if somebody's negative to you, if somebody's trying to bring you into their war, you have an opportunity to choose how you want to react. And it's always better to just let the other party think that they're winning. Like, you don't have to win this game, because especially if you're playing the game with somebody, well then there you go. You have to abide by whoever's rules, you guys want to agree on. And some people are designed very close-minded, and they want to create their rules and they want you to play by them.
Yeah.
And people like, I would say people like me and you, where like we can get on a 3-hour conversation and it's so seamless, and there's so many, like, it's just building, right? Like we're making a temple here. We're not bickering and arguing about the minutia. We're here to make change and grow as humans. There's a lot of people on this planet that they don't have that. They don't care to have that. They want to be right. They want to win. They want to, like, everything is a fucking battle,
Yeah.
And I think we get into this super early in life through like kids playing video games. It's like you play video games and you always want to win, and you get frustrated when you lose. And when you lose and you're frustrated, it's like almost it's like within us at a cellular level to be like that. Our parents are kind of cool with it. They do it, so it's just generational indoctrination of how to react to negative things and to always want to be a winner. And when those two things exist simultaneously, well, how are we ever going to be a team? We're only on the team of the people that we agree with most. And that's where we get into the belief systems, and we get into this whole, like, whatever it is. And I think we've touched on a lot of that in today's transmission, but I'm really working towards that path of neutrality and letting people win their war that they think is a war. But I'm not going to let that become part of my reality. I won't get dragged into that.
Yeah. I mean, words well said on getting brought into a scenario where it's not there's no winner. So it's like, again, the old, go back to that movie, the Tron Legacy. If you want to win, don't play. So, it's kind of like if people want to they're looking for attention, or it goes back to being an energy predator. And when you can stop being an energy predator, and what is the definition of an energy predator? You're out there looking for people's energy. You're out there. You need other people's energies. You need other people's responses to what you got to say, because you feed off of that. But when you can stand in a layer of neutrality and just be an observer, you don't have to enter that game with them. And then they're going to have to look for food somewhere else, So it's really, it can be really tricky, but very simple. And again, don't rely on anybody for your energetic food. If you have a relationship that you're in, I mean, it's just a matter of companionship and complementation. It's not a matter of like, I need you for sex or I need you for love. No, it's great if I get that, but I don't need it. Because there's a difference between, those words want and need. Like when you say, I need to go to the gym. Well, do you need to? Yeah, I don't feel good. I need, or my circuit, whatever. Or do you want to go? There's a difference between want and need. I want to have a companion versus I need to have a companion. There's a big difference between the two words.
Yeah. And also, like, in just the rules of manifestation, when you're using the word want, sometimes you'll spellcast yourself into never being able to accomplish anything. So even with like leveraging on that, on like what you just said, and kind of pivoting to where we could gain some utility in all of this, it's like, yes, we don't need much, but when we're always like want, we're typically not doing shit.
Yeah.
So put action in, like, make change. That's where a lot of people mess up with manifestation, is they're always focused on like their mindset thing is caught up in this idea of ask and you shall receive, but without any action. So like, how do you perpetually keep just talking to yourself and not making any change?
Totally. I mean, the word want is the number 16 tied to the word hell. So it's tied to your ego, so a lot of the things that we want may not necessarily be the things that we need. But I think when you just let go, like I strive to do it all the time now. It's just like I let go and I just trust. And I'm really in the now conscious, like, being in a high state of gratitude, being a gratitude junkie, giving thanks to everything in my life, because everything I feel in this reality just wants one thing, and that's acknowledgement. So even though your pillow can't talk back to you, just saying thanks to your pillow when you wake up from a good night's rest is, to me, is the way to live life. Giving thanks to your teeth when you're brushing them for all those years that they sat there and chewed your food and allowed the digestion to start taking place, to me is a win when you acknowledge the teeth. you know. So I think it's just a really big thing to be in the present moment of the now, and the present moment's the gift, which is the presence. You know, the presence that you're in, the present is the gift. So I think a lot of people, if they were to stand in that, you'd just be able to allow. I mean, I'm at a point now, Jordan, where like I'm so dialed into the code, and the code I've let go. Now I know, like I order something on Amazon. I've had this happen a few times, and it gets returned. And then I order it again. I'm like, what the heck, you know? And then I order it again, and it shows up, and then I didn't even need it. I wasted the money on it. It happened twice already. Mm-hmm. Like I shouldn't have bought it. And the code sent it back, and then I reordered it, and I got it, and I ended up wasting the money, and I ended up using it.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was talking about with those videos that I was having like glitch out on me and get deleted. Like maybe the take that I did, just like I said something that I didn't really quite align with, or like I was spell casting myself into like, you know, whatever that was going on. Like I respect all that. Like I respect the process.
Yep. Those are the signs for me. So
yeah. And when you're talking about gratitude, that's huge. You know, I think like our first podcasts that we did ever were really focused on that energy. And one thing to mention, going back to this term want, what do we want, right? We always want stimulation, right? We're desiring things. So we want stimulation from whatever it is, from the likes and, you know, the followers, the subscribers, like the money, the whatever. You want to wake up in the morning and see like 20 people texted you. That, like, those weird little things, like that's what we desire. I know that sounds awful, but that's how we are. Like we love attention. We're all like Hollywood actors.
Yep.
You know, we love being in the limelight. We like being the superstar. And but the difference between some of us and all of us, the majority, is some of us are able to actually tap into that superstar energy, to actually become that entity, to become the main character. And I believe the big shift there, like the quantum shift, is not seeking to be stimulated by others, but being able to stimulate yourself. You know, being able to create art or whatever it is that you do, where like that is enough. You don't need to have everyone's acceptance, and you know, you don't seek that any longer. Like one of the things that I've learned a lot about over the last couple months is when you seek the worship, or when you seek the positive only, well, then you're forgetting about the crucifixion. You're forgetting about the darkness that comes along with that seeking of the good. You know, there's always like, it's a double, you know, edged sword in a sense. It feels good to have people be happy and love you, but after seeing some people that said they love you tell you that they want you to die, well, then you've learned the lesson of like, okay, there's a Judas hidden within all of us.
Yeah.
Like, and I as a quote unquote main character in this game, I have to remember there's going to be many Judases that show up in this Matrix reality for me. And instead of like being upset about that betrayal, I could come back from these experiences time and time again and just hug that Judas, like be like, thank you for doing that to me, because I know that everything that you did, whether it was designed with negative intent or whatever, it played a role in this whole timeline. It played a role in my story, and I needed to experience that. And I'm grateful for that. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And that's really something that I'm trying to tap into more and more throughout time, is even like the people that seem to be the most bitter, like parasitic human beings, they serve a purpose, and that purpose that they serve for you can choose for that to be a positive thing.
Yeah, I mean, parasite equals 25, just like the word adversary equals 25, just like the word black sun equals 25, and we have two black suns in our eyes called pupils. So yeah, people can be definitely parasitic.
Well, it comes back to exactly what you're saying before about energy harvesting, or like energy vampires.
Yep.
Like the people that can't fulfill themselves, who are seeking externally for that fulfillment, or what I'm calling stimulation. These individuals, you know, they're parasites. And I'm not trying to be disrespectful. It just, that is what it is.
Yeah.
You know, do you get mad at the tapeworm that's inside of your body? Or do you respect the tapeworm just needs to fuck somewhere to live?
Yeah, it just wants a home, and it
just wants a home. If you were kicked out of your house, you're gonna go try find a home.
Yep. See,
right?
people can't get to these level. Well, I shouldn't say people cannot. I should stop saying that. Many people are challenged to get to these levels of thinking. To what you just said was so deep that the tapeworm that may be inside your body right now is there because you offer it a home. And
And it would
essentially,
do it, and it's doing what it needs to do.
it's doing what it needs to do. And what do? We're constantly, now in this world, if you're taking care of your physical body, it's, I got to detox. I got to go to the gym. I got to sweat it out. Your drive in life is to get rid of the things that you take on, and you literally just, things move through you. And that's how we decay.
That's how Neo and Agent Smith like battled at the very end of the third Matrix. They just kept fucking going at it and going at it and going at it and going at it until Neo let go.
Yep.
So like you can keep acting like that. I used to do this too, just being like really into health. Like when I went down the detoxification rabbit hole and getting into fasting and all that, I attached that intent onto it. Like, oh, I need to just like, cleanse myself. I need to get rid of all the parasites. I need to do this, that, whatever. Like, and I was so caught up in that energy. And what I noticed was like, oh shit, like just this mind state alone is very built in lack. It's almost by default spellcasting myself to, I am a sick person. I am unhealthy. I must have a problem. I must have this parasite. That was the brainwashing. And the same thing goes for this modern bullshit we're experiencing with germ theory on the world stage. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
And this is like the core level of what Zionism is actually. It's about making you feel as an organic being not enough. You're not enough. You're born, you're not enough. We need to put poison in your eyes, give you 70 vaccines, cut the tip of your dick off, do all this crazy shit to you. You're not enough, and you will get sick, and you will develop a disease, and you will become, have cancer and celiac and all this. That's how we're treating a newborn, perfect, pure child. We look at a deer gives birth into a fucking puddle of mud. And the baby is perfect, stronger than us, doesn't have cancer.
Well, it's turn and burn down here in Wonderland. I mean,
it's La La Land.
It's La La Land, and the game, as beautiful as it is, I live in paradise, but yet it's ugly. I can see the duality everywhere, and it's inescapable. And I just think if you were like, if let's just say you go right back to, you could just like, I'm completely pure. That's hogwash nonsense thinking. Because the very reason why we have white blood cells in our body is because it was designed around there being invaders. That's the job of the white blood cell. So if there's no bacteria, if there's no virus, well, I shouldn't say virus, there's no bacteria, if there's no invaders coming into the body, well, there would be no job for the white blood cell. But yet that's how the human body is programmed. It's how it's coded. So if all you have to do is to look at to the spectrum of the body and the physicalities and go into the microbiology world. There's a really cool YouTube channel called Journey to the Microcosm. I think I've mentioned it to you before. It's pretty awesome. They put stuff under a microscope and you look at these single cell organisms, and it's all predator prey down there, just like it is here. And it's inescapable.
It reminds me of that basic, like, know thyself. Like once you know the inner workings of all these little things, you start to be able to have like, you can make sense of it all. And it takes quite a journey, and you need to be extremely open-minded to get to that place.
Yeah.
And what I mean by open-minded is like literally completely, accepting towards the chaos of all of this information. And the way that we make choices is based off of how we resonate with that information that we're receiving at that time. And if we try it and it gets rejected either through failure or whatever, just like when you order an Amazon package and it gets returned twice, you take that sign, you take an inventory, be grateful during that process, allow it, and then keep it moving.
Keep it moving.
You keep doing that process, rinse, repeat, and like you're going to start to unlock some pretty amazing, qualities of the self that you never once knew about, because you were either too caught up in the egoic side or you were too caught up in shadow, these traumas. you know, and we need both to kind of like come together and beat the shit out of each other to find self. Because
Yeah.
that's truthfully what it is. It's like, when you think of it, like there is no peaceful process for this all happening. It is absolutely just, it's brutal. It's as brutal as a war, you know. That's always how I take this, because again, like a lot of people, especially during their enlightenment phases, they want this journey to be like all sunshine and rainbows, and it's like, no, it's dark, man. You need the darkness for the light to shine through.
Yeah.
You can't just look at it as good and bad anymore. You have to accept that it is more than such. And when you do that, now you start to see the spectrums of the rainbow, of the color, for once, the true color. And that's not with the eyes on the sides. That's with the first eye. And that's with many other things. It's the gut, it's the heart, you know. Like once we start like seeing how that all comes into play, I say this quite often, like right now a lot of people are suffering from being in the mind, and we need to move from the mind to the heart. And just by making that little, like, you know, journey south, we can make some amazing you know, changes in our society and our communities.
Yeah, well said. I look to the, you know, I really am a heavy, just being certified in nutrition, and I know you're a big fan of this, but, you know, the pH scale is all you need to look at to discover the keys to how this universe works. And if you know the pH scale, it's acid and alkaline, and in the center of acid and alkaline is the number 7. And of course, it's a big number. It's the 4th prime number, and it's a big deal, right? But that's where you want to be. And you just look to blood. Blood is slightly alkaline. It's around 7.3, 7.4 on the pH scale. And so it's just slightly to the right, just slightly alkaline. And it doesn't deviate away from that. And if it did, you would die. So if you just look to the pH scale, if you go heavy alkaline, which let's just say it's heavy light, if you go heavy angel, you'll die. You'll change and transmute. To survive here in duality, you need to be slightly alkaline, which means you want to be slightly angel. You want to be slightly an angel. But, you know, you go down to the left side, which is acid. That's where the devil hangs out. That's all satiation. And you have, you know, your foods that make you feel good, comfort foods, sugary foods, processed foods. You know, those are all acidic, and that's all lower chakras. That's where you do all your humping and your sex and your orgasms. That's all satiation. And that's all acidic. So you want to be balanced, and you want to be in the very dead center, which is where neutrality comes into play. And that just goes into my decode I have coming out called the Two Thieves. On the right side is alkaline or acidic, depending on how you look at it. On the left is alkaline or acidic. And in the very dead center where the Christ is the single eye, and that's neutrality. And that's, you know, right above the Christ is the letters INRI, which is inner eye, right? When you say those letters, inner eye, which is the single eye. So you want to be in the dead center, and you want to be slightly to the love side, because you can't get rid of satiation. You can't be.
Remember, like it's about that stimulation, man. Like we love that stimulation, and like the thing that stimulates us with the least amount of effort is those comfort foods, or watching porn, or gambling, or whatever it is. Like, you know, this quick win. Like I'm willing to lose 90% of the time for the odds or the possibility that I might win.
Yeah.
And that's where that's, you know, it's quite interesting how it works that way. But this is what I tell people. And I feel like this is very important when we're talking about these things that are quote unquote acidic. They're like the canvas for what could become a more alkaline behavior, if we just wanted to like make this an analogy. So if we're eating fast food and complete shit all the time, and then we just jump complete 360 to eating nothing but broccoli and apples, we don't have this transition phase, and it fucks us up.
Yep.
So it goes both ways. It's like people learn about detoxification, they learn about the process of, like, you know, moving towards that more alkaline side, but they go straight so extreme. And what happens is they don't know the process of coming back to the center. They're just on this teeter totter, up to the heavens, down to hell. And I think about this quite often because somebody asked me recently about addiction in a live stream that I had. And because I've seen addiction in my own life, I know that it's something that's inescapable. Like, we're all sort of addicted to something. And if we're talking about something like heroin, like something really extreme that could really destroy a family, destroy a life, destroy the body, however you want to look at it, these extremes, like of taking out something that could be so chaotic and so destructive, and then going towards the state of not having it anymore, you see what that does to somebody during the withdrawal process.
Yep.
Holy shit. Like, they're better off doing the heroin. That's how bad it looks. So there's that instance. But then furthermore, this is what a lot of people do with all addictive behavior. They're like, oh, I'm just going to go cold turkey. I'm going to quit smoking. I'm going to do this. They always are going the extreme route. They're not easing into it. And my whole thing is like, fall in love with those addictions, and by loving them, you will be able to transition out of them way healthier. And then in this process, you'll actually be able to create something sustainable, because when you make this huge quantum leap and you try to like escape the part of you that was always there anyways, this kind of hunger within you, this addiction, you're going to be thinking about that fucking addiction every time you're being a good boy.
Yeah.
And you don't want this. You want to be in that neutral point. You want to kind of ease into neutrality, because when you get there, you're going to really, really like remember what that whole process was like. And when you do this huge jump from left to right, like this very, black and white sort of move, you're going to always be thinking about, oh man, I really loved that, burger that I had, or whatever it was that was like keeping you, making you so stuck and a slave to whatever it was, whatever substance it was. So very important, man. Like, whatever it is, like, the reason why I say this is because I know that I'm addicted to a ton of things. I've just learned how to channel that energy into stuff that serves my higher purpose. It's not that it's better. It's not that it's good. That's not how this works. Okay? Because I've been through the ringer with this knowledge, wisdom thing. I've had many friendships, family members, partners, a lot of shit go away because of taking this route of, being this player in the game. Unfortunately, it requires an immense amount of sacrifice when it comes to your social life and the people that are in your reality. And with that being said, of course, I decided to maintain being in this position because it's the true self. It's what I resonate with most. It was what I was designed to do. And I'm okay with letting go of those people. Mm-hmm. But what I do with my quote unquote addictive behavior, whether that's with my decoding, with my work, with my music making, with whatever, even research, and I'm sure you've gone through this before too, where like you're 16, 17 hours deep into your work and you're like, you don't even want to sleep. You don't even want to eat. The thing that's feeding you, the thing that's providing you with the calories, with the energy is this addiction. Yes, it's not heroin and McDonald's, but it is this work, right? Yeah. And through that, you're set free in a sense. You actually find bliss in it. You even admitted that. Yep. So like, what is pain could become pleasure, and vice versa. And it's so much better when it's done through that neutrality state and the transition out of it into a more healthy addiction. Or if you could perhaps, transmute that unhealthy energy into something that's more, benefiting towards you and your path and your purpose, you're going to see why that was such a better way to go.
Yeah, I mean, very wise words of wisdom there, for sure. Because there is a lot to be said about transmutation. And then I like what you said about, not just going straight into the depths of change in a major way. Take baby steps, make that transition. A lot of people, they want to become more plant-based. They don't know how to do it. And then they feel like they just have to stop everything. And I just think, that's a really bad move. Or the wrong move, or whatever word you want to use to describe, whatever adjective you use to get to that center point of neutrality. And then you got to decide, what does neutrality look like for you? And I think the basis should be what you have coined, which is so eloquently, beautifully said through the code: love is allowing, and respecting and appreciating the addictions that we do have, because we all have addictions. I could say I'm addicted to decoding. It just won't leave me alone. Like I came out with this funny meme. It's like, I decode on the first date. you know? And so it's just, that's how I roll now. Like, that's what I'm good. That's what I would do. If I go out on a date, I'm going to be decoding constantly because that's all I do now. It's like the code wants me to decode.
Right.
You know, but it's a fun addiction to have. I mean, it's definitely, it beats me up because it keeps me up. Sometimes it's like, oh my God, it's 4 a.m. and I'm like, I don't want to stop.
Yeah.
You know,
well, it serves its purpose in this chapter of your life, but even you admit and say that you see a change in your future, whether that be music or
for sure.
Or food, like you said. So it's like even you probably see the quality within it that particular addiction has, that's making you not so neutral because you're cognizant to it. And I'm not directly talking about decoding. I know there's way more to this. Perhaps it's your business, your YouTube channel, whatever it is. So with that being said, you know, like I'm open-minded to all of that. And I've even said the same thing. Like my focuses this year are not about building anymore. You know, like I've built it. I've built the whole, you know, the temple. Now let's keep that temple structure, you know, let's keep it structurally sound. And this has so much more to do with where I am on an emotional level. That's really what this is all about. Like this temple that I'm talking about, it's not my business, it's not my followers, it's none of that. Like I fucking love the people who support my work and who are paying attention to my work. I just mean that I don't live for the likes and thumbs up and all of that from the internet. I live for what makes me feel like I'm serving my purpose and what perpetuates my harmony. And I can see that a lot of this social media thing has destroyed so many people, even popular content creators, you know. And it's sad to see because they're in that main character role, but they're letting someone else call the shots, and that someone else is their observer, you know.
I think go ahead, finish.
Oh no, I was just going to say it's the people who are leaving the reviews, or the people who are, you know, the people who are showing up to your play. And yeah, they're there to give you energy, but don't let them control you.
Yeah, I mean, you know, a good exercise that I'm on the fence on is like just shutting comments off on my decodes. You know, and the reason why I haven't done that is because I want other people to show what they see. I always say pretty much after all my video, what is it you see? What did you see? Leave in your comments. And so, but you know, if I just shut the comments off, it would eliminate any negativity, of course, any trolls and all stuff. But then, you know, there's no feedback.
Right.
So then what do you, are you just falling in love with doing what you're supposed to be doing? Or is there some pull like, oh, I want some feedback to get some energy? And, you know, is that playing in the background? It's kind of putting yourself in check.
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't shut my comments off purposefully because I think the community and the way that I speak, like those two things simultaneously, I've cultured to this position where like we're all kind of a big family, and people who are new, like complete outsider, which again, this is just part of the YouTube algorithm or an interview that I do or whatever. If they show up brand new and the first thing they do is speak negatively, like I take it that that's on them. You know, like I've become very good at accepting negative comments, but I've also become very aware that that person is spell casting themselves. It's like I heard this one yogi talking about how when you give the middle finger and your intent behind it is like saying fuck you, you just caused a car crash somewhere on earth.
Yeah, that's interesting.
And of course, like this is completely analogous. Like I'm not speaking out of pure fact, but it's just like if you tell another human being that you want them to die, you just killed an entire village of people.
Yeah, the ripple effect.
And when I was paying attention to that wisdom, I said to myself, oh, wow, man. First of all, it tells me that I need to be like, again, true or not, that's not what it's about. It's about the nugget of wisdom, you know, because that resonates with me 1,000,000%.
Yeah, sure. Me too.
Like that's how I talk now. Like I talk first and foremost as if I'm talking to 1 billion people.
Yep.
I don't care about the numbers. And the second, I just know that there's listeners and that those people matter and they're resonating with my words, with my vibrational frequency. And furthermore, like I need to make sure that I'm keeping anything that I say, you know, within those parameters when it's coming to something that might be some sort of derogatory or negative, you know, just remembering that when you say something that is mean or, just ill-willed. It's kind of like you're creating a problem somewhere else and you didn't even intentionally mean to do that, but you're part of it. You're still part of it, and you need to watch yourself. And so when people are writing those negative comments, like, they're going to learn that someday. Like, if they're just straight up saying nonsense, nothing that has any constructive feedback or true criticism to help either you or to help the other people who are reading those comments, if they're just being negative, they're creating car crashes in their life, in their timeline, and they're going to have to deal with that. And it sucks that it's that way, but they choose to be that way. And
Sure.
when you start to live a love-based frequency, you're not, dude, you stop writing comments. Like,
yeah, totally.
Like, I was thinking about it the other day, just as a joke. Like, have you ever looked at the reviews on national parks?
Yeah, I've seen some of that stuff before.
Yeah, like,
it's been a while, but yeah.
People are like, I went to Yellowstone, I gave it 1 star because it smells like farts.
Yeah.
It's like, bro, like, are you serious? Like,
Yeah.
if it was 100% a joke, then that's super funny. But if they seriously meant to, you feel where I'm going with this?
Totally.
It's like,
yeah, no, I get it.
dude, it's nature. Like, but this is how it is. Like, the people that want to make negative comments typically lack, and they hate themselves.
Yeah.
They seriously have so much fear and so much hate, and they don't typically create much at all. So they're the last person that should be saying something negative about another creative.
I agree.
And as I become more creative and tap into that creative energy, I start respecting all the creators, because I'm like, you guys are fucking doing amazing things. You're putting yourself on the line. You're sacrificing your time and your energy to do this for the whole species.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, no,
how could I ever say anything bad about that?
I concur with you. All right, brother, I got to roll because I got to get to the store and I got 15 minutes. But dude, thanks for coming on and just last minute, like we always do, and sharing your wisdom. You got a huge fan base. I'm a huge fan of you and your work, and I appreciate you. Much love to you over there. And I can't wait to get together for, I think this is podcast 6. So I think so, but look forward to getting together with you again. I'll really looking forward to that. So.
Yeah, man, of course. Definitely. We'll be on the next one, and I don't even know what you could title this one.
I don't even know. I'll try to figure it out on my way to the store, but it's been an honor and a big hug, man. A lot of fun. And looking forward to the next one, brother.
Yeah, man. Much love to you. I appreciate you. And thanks for having me on.
Yeah, likewise. All right. Talk to you soon, brother.
Take care, brother.
Yo, you too. Thanks everybody for listening. Till next time, we'll see you later.